I thought I knew what betrayal tasted like until I saw Cameron's name light up on Alexis's phone at 2 in the morning. We were tangled together in bed, his arm draped possessively over my waist, his breathing soft and steady against the curve of my neck. Sleep had abandoned me hours ago, leaving me staring at the ceiling in the darkness, so I reached across him to grab his phone from the nightstand. Just to check the time. That's all I wanted. Just the time. The screen blazed to life in my hand, and that's when I saw it. The notification banner glowing like a beacon of destruction. Cameron, last night was perfect. I miss you already. Below the message, a photo thumbnail. My fingers moved without permission, tapping it open. There they were, Alexis and Cameron, captured in a moment that wasn't meant for my eyes. They were laughing, their faces illuminated by candlelight, hands intertwined across a table set for two. The timestamp burned itself into my retinas, 11:47 p.m., less than 3 hours ago. My chest constricted, ribs squeezing around my lungs until each breath felt like swallowing glass. My hands started trembling so violently I nearly dropped the phone. The memories of last night played back in cruel detail. Alexis had texted me around 8, claiming he was drowning in paperwork at the law firm, that a major case needed his attention, that he'd be home by midnight at the latest. I'd believed every word. Why wouldn't I? In the 2 years we'd been together, he'd never given me a reason to doubt him. He'd come home smelling like expensive cologne and wintergreen mints, his hair slightly disheveled, his shirt wrinkled in that way that suggested a long day at the office. He'd found me half asleep on the couch, pulled me into his arms, and pressed a kiss to my forehead. "Missed you," he'd whispered, his voice rough with what I'd interpreted as exhaustion. Now I wondered what it really was. Guilt? Satisfaction? The afterglow of being with someone else. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned, willing the image to change, to reveal itself as some kind of mistake. Maybe it was an old photo accidentally resent. Maybe the timestamp was wrong. Maybe I was hallucinating from lack of sleep. But the date was crystal clear, the time was unmistakable, and the smile on Alexis's face, that particular curve of his lips that I thought was reserved exclusively for me, was directed at someone else entirely. Something inside me cracked. Not a clean break, but a splintering fracture that spread through my chest like lightning through a summer sky. I carefully placed the phone back on the nightstand, my movements slow and deliberate, as if I were defusing a bomb. Then I turned onto my other side, away from him, holding my breath so he wouldn't wake up. His arm was still around my waist, but it no longer felt comforting. It felt suffocating, like a chain I hadn't known I was wearing. The questions came in waves, relentless and drowning. How many times had this happened? How many late nights at the office were actually dates with Cameron? How many kisses had he given me that still tasted like lies? How long had I been the fool in this relationship? The one who didn't suspect a thing. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I just lay there in the darkness, feeling the weight of his arm on my body and the heavier weight of betrayal in my heart, waiting for morning to come. When dawn finally crept through the curtains, painting the room in shades of gray, I heard him stir behind me. The mattress shifted as he stretched. I felt him move closer, his hand sliding up to cup my face. "Good morning, babe," he murmured, his voice still thick with sleep. There was tenderness in his tone, affection in his touch. If I hadn't seen that photo, I would have melted into him like I always did. Instead, I forced myself to respond. "Good morning." The words came out flat, lifeless, like coins dropping into an empty well. If he noticed the change in my voice, he didn't show it. He kissed my shoulder before sliding out of bed, his bare feet padding across the hardwood floor toward the bathroom. The moment the door clicked shut, I reached for his phone again. My hands were steadier now, fueled by a desperate need for answers. But when I opened his messages, they were gone. The conversation with Cameron had vanished. The photo had been deleted. It was as if the notification had never existed. As if I'd imagined the whole thing, except I hadn't. The image was seared into my memory, every detail vivid and sharp. I could still see the way Cameron's fingers were laced through Alexis's, the intimate tilt of their heads toward each other, the romantic glow of the candles between them. My stomach churned with nausea. I heard the shower turn on in the bathroom. The sound of water hitting tile felt obscenely normal, as if the entire world hadn't just shifted beneath my feet. I wanted to storm in there, to demand answers, to throw the phone at him and scream until my voice gave out. But I didn't. Instead, I set the phone back exactly where it had been, climbed out of bed on shaking legs and walked to the kitchen. Going through the motions of making coffee felt surreal. My body moved on autopilot, measuring grounds, filling the reservoir, pressing the button. The machine gurgled to life, filling the apartment with the familiar aroma of our morning routine. How many mornings had we shared this ritual? How many of those mornings had been built on lies? When Alexis emerged from the bedroom 15 minutes later, freshly showered and dressed for work, he looked exactly like he always did. Confident, put together, completely at ease. He came up behind me as I stood at the counter, wrapping his arms around my waist and nuzzling my neck. "You're up early," he observed, his breath warm against my skin. I forced myself not to flinch away. Couldn't sleep. He turned me around to face him, his hands settling on my hips. Those green eyes that I'd fallen in love with searched my face with apparent concern. "Everything okay? You seem off." The irony of the question nearly broke me. Everything was not okay. Nothing would ever be okay again. But I couldn't tell him that. Not yet. Not when I didn't have proof beyond a deleted message and a vanished photo. "Just tired," I lied, and the ease with which the falsehood left my lips surprised me. I'd never lied to him before. We'd built our relationship on honesty, on trust, on the promise that we'd always be truthful with each other. Now I understood that I was the only one who'd been keeping that promise. He kissed my forehead, lingering there for a moment that felt like mockery. "Get some rest today, okay? I'll bring dinner home tonight. Your favorite." As I watched him gather his briefcase and keys, as I returned his goodbye kiss at the door, as I waved at him through the window while he walked to his car, one thought echoed through my mind with devastating clarity. This was the beginning of the end, and I was the only one who knew it. The entire morning passed in a fog of hyper-awareness, where every action Alexis took felt loaded with hidden meaning. I watched him from the kitchen doorway as he went through his routine with unsettling normalcy. He measured coffee beans with the same precision he always did, humming under his breath while he waited for the kettle to boil. When he caught me staring, he winked at me over his shoulder, that playful gesture that used to make my heart skip. Now it just made me feel sick. "Sure you're all right?" he asks, spreading butter on his toast with careful strokes. The concern in his voice sounded genuine, which only made everything worse. How could someone fake sincerity so perfectly? "Yeah, just didn't sleep well," I replied, and the words tasted bitter. It was the first deliberate lie I'd ever told him, and it felt wrong in my mouth, like speaking a foreign language I'd never wanted to learn. Our entire relationship had been built on a foundation of honesty, or so I'd thought. Now I was realizing that maybe I'd been the only one telling the truth. He crossed the kitchen in 3 strides, pulling me into an embrace that would have felt safe yesterday. Today it felt like a cage. He pressed his lips to my forehead, and I had to resist the urge to pull away. "Take it easy today, all right? I'll be back early. I promise." That word, promise. The same promise he'd presumably made while sitting across from Cameron at that candlelit table at 11:47 p.m. My jaw clenched involuntarily, but I managed to nod, to force my face into something resembling a smile. When the door finally closed behind him, I stood frozen in the middle of our apartments, surrounded by the evidence of our shared life. His favorite mug on the counter, his jacket hanging by the door, framed photos of us on the bookshelf, capturing moments I'd believed were real. Were any of them genuine? Or had I been living in a carefully constructed illusion this whole time? I tried to distract myself. I made the bed, did the dishes, sorted through mail that had been piling up, but my mind kept circling back to that photo, to Cameron's face, to the way Alexis had looked at him. My phone buzzed around noon, and my heart lurched before I even looked at the screen. Alexis. Lunch meeting with clients. Love you. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. The old me would have sent back a heart emoji and well wishes. The new me, the one who'd seen the truth at 2 in the morning, could only wonder, was he really with clients? Or was Cameron waiting for him at some restaurant, ordering wine and appetizers, checking his watch in anticipation? The suspicion was eating me alive from the inside out. I made a decision then, standing in our living room with my phone clutched in my hand. I would confront him. Tonight. I would demand the truth, and if he lied, I would leave. I had to. I couldn't live like this. Constantly questioning, always wondering. But then doubt crept in with insidious whispers. What if he denied everything? What if he made me feel crazy for even asking? The photo was gone. The messages deleted. I had no proof beyond what I'd seen in those few moments at 2 a.m. Would he gaslight me? Tell me I was imagining things? The thought of him looking at me with disappointment, with pity, with that particular expression that suggested I was being irrational, made my stomach turn. And beneath that fear lurked an even darker question. Could I actually leave him if he confessed? Could I walk away from 2 years, from the apartment we'd chosen together, from the future we'd planned? Could I survive without him? When he came home that evening, he was practically glowing with excitement. The front door burst open and he rushed in, dropping his briefcase with a thud. Baby, guess what? I got promoted. Before I could process his words, he'd swept me off my feet, literally lifting me and spinning me around. His joy was infectious, radiant, completely convincing. If I were a better actor, I might have been able to match his enthusiasm. Instead, I felt like I was watching the scene from outside my body, observing someone who looked like me trying to smile. That's amazing, Alexis. The words came out automatically, but they felt hollow. He set me down but kept his hands on my waist, his face alight with an expression I couldn't bring myself to trust anymore. Senior associate. Can you believe it? This is everything we've been working toward. We celebrated because what else could I do? I couldn't ruin his moment with accusations I couldn't prove. We ordered takeout from the Thai place down the street, opened a bottle of wine that had been saving for a special occasion. He told me about the meeting with the partners, about his new responsibilities, about the raise that would come with the promotion. Every word should have filled me with pride. Instead, I felt numb. After dinner, he pulled me onto the couch, arranging us so my back was against his chest, his arms wrapped around me. This used to be my favorite position, the place where I felt most secure. Now I felt I couldn't have done any of this without you, you know, he said softly, his breath stirring my hair. You're my rock, my anchor, my everything. Those words. Everything. If I was everything to him, then what was Cameron? A hobby? A distraction? A guilty pleasure he indulged in when he thought I wouldn't notice? My throat tightened with the effort of holding back tears. Alexis. His name came out barely above a whisper. His arms tightened around me slightly, a gesture that might have been affectionate or possessive. I couldn't tell anymore. Are you? I started, then stopped. My courage was failing me. Are you keeping anything from me? I felt him go still behind me. The pause lasted only a heartbeat, maybe 2, but it felt like an eternity. Then he shifted, turning me to face him, his expression open and confused. What? No, of course not. Why would you even ask that? His eyes met mine without wavering. There was no guilt in them, no hesitation, no telltale sign of deception, just honest confusion and what looked like genuine concern. Either he was the most accomplished liar I'd ever met, or I was losing my mind. Just making sure we're good, I said weakly. He cupped my face in his hands, thumbs stroking my cheekbones with familiar tenderness. We're more than good, babe. We're perfect. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly it hurt. But I'd seen that photo. I'd seen the timestamp. I'd seen the way he'd looked at Cameron. So instead of confronting him, instead of demanding answers, I just nodded and let him kiss me. And I hated myself a little bit more for being too afraid to speak the truth. The next week crawled by with agonizing slowness, each day bleeding into the next in a haze of forced normalcy and mounting dread. Every text message from Alexis felt like a test I was failing. Every phone call made me wonder who he was really talking to. Every time he said he'd be working late, my imagination conjured images of him with Cameron, laughing over wine, holding hands across tables, building intimacy in spaces that should have been reserved for us. The paranoia was exhausting, turning me into someone I didn't recognize, someone who checked the laundry for unfamiliar scents and monitored his phone like a detective on a stakeout. On Thursday evening, Alexis suggested we go out. Just the two of us, he said, wrapping his arms around me from behind while I washed dishes. We haven't had a real date in weeks. Let me take you somewhere nice. Part of me wanted to refuse, to maintain the emotional distance I'd been carefully constructing. But another part of me, the part that still desperately wanted to believe in us, nodded. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I'd misunderstood what I'd seen. Maybe this dinner would prove that we were still solid, still real, still worth fighting for. We chose Marcello's, the Italian restaurant where we'd had our first official date 2 years ago. Walking through those doors felt like stepping into a time machine, back to when everything was simple and uncomplicated. Alexis looked handsome in the dim lighting, his smile warm as the hostess led us to a corner table. He ordered the wine we'd shared that first night, remembering the details I'd thought only I'd preserved. "You know I love you, right?" he said once we were settled, reaching across the white tablecloth to take my hand. His thumb traced circles on my palm, the gesture achingly familiar. "I love you too," I replied, and in that moment, I meant it. Despite everything, despite the doubt and suspicion and fear, I still loved him. That was the cruelest part of all. We were studying our menus when I felt rather than saw someone enter the restaurants. That sixth sense that tells you something significant is about to happen made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I looked up just as Cameron walked past our table. Time seemed to fracture. Cameron was right there, close enough that I could have reached out and touched him. He wore a navy sweater that complemented his complexion, his hair styled with casual elegance. He glanced at our table, his eyes finding Alexis first. And Alexis looked back. It was only a second, maybe less, but in that brief exchange I saw everything I needed to see. Recognition, acknowledgement, a flash of something that might have been panic or excitement or both. Cameron's lips curved into a small knowing smile before he continued walking, disappearing into the bar area. Alexis immediately shifted his attention back to me, his expression smoothing into casual interest. "So what are you thinking?" he asked, nodding toward my menu as if nothing had happened. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. My hands had started trembling again, making the menu shake. Alexis, who was that? Who was who? He didn't even blink, just looked at me with perfect confusion. That man, the one who just walked by. "You saw him? Some random guy?" He shrugged, his body language relaxed and open. "Babe, I was looking at you." "Why?" The lie was so smooth, so effortless, it took my breath away. He was looking directly into my eyes, his expression innocent, while denying something we both knew was true. This wasn't ignorance or a misunderstanding. This was deliberate, calculated deception. I set down my menu with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. "You looked right at him." I might have glanced up when someone walked by, but I wasn't really paying attention. He squeezed my hand, his touch gentle. "Why are you fixating on this? We're supposed to be enjoying our dinner. How did you argue with someone who denied reality so convincingly? How did you prove what you'd seen when they looked at you like you were creating problems out of thin air?" I picked up my menu again, pretending to read the descriptions of pasta dishes I couldn't have eaten if someone paid me. My appetite had vanished, replaced by a knot of anxiety that sat like a stone in my stomach. Dinner passed in a blur. I have no memory of what I ordered or how it tasted. I smiled when Alexis told jokes. I nodded when he talked about work. I played my part in the charade we were both performing, each of us pretending different things. He was pretending everything was fine. I was pretending I wasn't dying inside. The drive home was quiet. Alexis seemed content with the silence, humming along to the radio, his hand resting on my thigh. When he pulled into our parking spot, he turned to me with a soft smile. "Thanks for tonight. I needed this." "Me too," I lied, adding another falsehood to the growing collection. Inside our apartment, he tried to pull me close to continue the romantic evening he'd orchestrated. But I stepped away, citing exhaustion, and retreated to the bedroom. He followed a few minutes later, changing into his sleep clothes, setting his phone on the nightstand within my reach. Was that intentional? Was he so confident in his deception that he didn't even bother hiding it anymore? I lay awake long after his breathing evened out into sleep. At some point past midnight, driven by a compulsion I couldn't resist, I reached for his phone. The screen lit up, and this time it was locked. The password we'd always shared had been changed. My hands trembled as I set the phone back down. The simple act of being locked out, confirming everything I'd been afraid to believe. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't me being irrational or oversensitive. This was real. Alexis was lying to me, had been lying to me, and he was doing it so well that I'd started to doubt my own perceptions. The gaslighting, the casual denials, the way he made me question what I'd seen with my own eyes. It was all part of a pattern I'd been too trusting to recognize. I turned onto my side, away from him, and let the tears come silently. They soaked into my pillow as I mourned not just our relationship, but my own naivety. How had I been so blind? How had I missed the signs? When had the man I loved turned into someone I didn't know at all? By the time dawn light began filtering through our curtains, I'd made a decision. I needed proof, real, undeniable evidence, that would force him to stop lying, that would give me the strength to do what I should have done the moment I saw that notification. Tomorrow, I would find the truth, and then I would finally know what I had to do. The next 2 days turned me into someone I barely recognized, a detective in my own relationship, cataloging evidence of my boyfriend's betrayal with cold precision. I watched Alexis the way a scientist observes a specimen under glass. Every gesture became data. When he used his phone, he angled the screen away from me, his body language protective and closed. When notifications chimed, his fingers moved with practice speed to clear them before I could glimpse the sender. When I entered a room where he was texting, he would casually set the phone face down and look up with a smile that no longer reached his eyes. These were small things, individually meaningless. Together they painted a portrait of guilt. Friday arrived wrapped in false normalcy. Alexis emerged from the bedroom already dressed for work, adjusting his tie in the hallway mirror. "There's a networking event tonight at the Riverside Hotel," he said without looking at me. "Probably won't be back until late. Don't wait up." "Sounds important," I replied, my voice steady despite the storm building in my chest. "Good luck with it." He kissed my cheek on his way out, the gesture perfunctory, automatic. The moment the door clicked shut, I counted to 60, making sure he wouldn't return for forgotten keys or his wallet. Then I moved. His laptop sat on the dining table where he'd left it, the screen dark but the power light glowing. He'd been careless. Or perhaps he'd grown so confident in his deception that he no longer bothered with caution. I opened it, and the screen came to life without demanding a password. His email application was still running, multiple tabs open across the top. My hands hovered over the keyboard, shaking slightly. This was it, the moment of truth. Once I looked, I couldn't unknow what I found. But I was already drowning in suspicion, and I needed air, even if that air was poisoned. I clicked on his personal email tab. The inbox loaded, and there, threaded through his work correspondence and spam, were messages from an address I didn't recognize. But the preview text made the sender clear. Camera. I clicked on the most recent thread, and the conversation unspooled before me like a confession written in digital ink. They'd been planning dates, coordinating schedules, booking hotels. The messages were detailed, intimate, filled with the kind of excitement that comes from doing something forbidden. Cameron had written, "I love sneaking around with you. It makes everything more intense." And Alexis had responded, "Same. It's like living in two worlds. He doesn't suspect a thing." He. That pronoun referred to me. I was the unknowing fool in their thrilling secret romance. My hands clenched into fists on either side of the laptop. Tears burned behind my eyes. But they didn't fall. I felt something else instead, something cold and clarifying. Numbness. The emotional equivalent of shock. My body's way of protecting itself from the full weight of this betrayal. I took screenshots, methodically documented every message, every damning word. Then I transferred them to my phone, creating an archive of evidence that Alexis couldn't delete or deny. When I was done, I closed the laptop and sat in the silence of our apartments, waiting. Hours crawled by. I didn't eat, didn't move from the couch, just sat there rehearsing what I would say, how I would confront him, preparing myself for the scene that would end everything. When he finally came home just after 11, he was wearing that cologne again, the expensive one he saved for special occasions. His face was flushed, whether from alcohol or exertion, I couldn't tell. He was smiling as he walked through the door. "Hey, you're still up," he said, dropping his keys in the bowl by the entrance. Event was deadly boring. Missed you the whole time. I looked at him from my position on the couch. Something in my expression must have registered because his smile faltered slightly. We need to talk, I said. My voice came out flat, emotionless, like I was reading from a script. Sure, what's going on? He moved toward me, still playing casual, still maintaining the facade. I pulled out my phone and held it up, the first screenshot displayed clearly on the screen. Explain this. The change in him was immediate and total. His face went pale. The smile vanished. His eyes widened as he recognized his own words reflected back at him. For a long moment he just stared at the screen. Then at me, his mouth opening and closing without sound. He started, then stopped. His hands came up in a helpless gesture. I can explain, then explain. I swiped to the next screenshot, then the next, a slideshow of his infidelity. Explain 6 months of hotels. Explain sneaking around. Explain how I don't suspect a thing. He sank onto the chair across from me, his head dropping into his hands. When he looked up, there were tears in his eyes. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. Sorry. The word felt insufficient. A band-aid on a bullet wound. How long has this been going on? 6 months. His voice cracked on the admission. It started at a conference. I didn't mean for it to happen. It got out of control. 6 months. Half a year of lies. Half a year of coming home to me after being with him. Half a year of saying he loved me while maintaining a completely separate relationship. The scope of the deception was staggering. Get out, I said quietly. What? He looked up sharply. Get out of this apartment. Tonight. Right now. My voice was still calm, eerily so. I felt detached from my body, watching this scene play out from somewhere above myself. Can't we talk about this? Can't we try to what? Alexis, try to fix this? I stood up, my phone gripped tight in my hand. You spent 6 months building a relationship with someone else while lying to my face every single day. You changed your password so I couldn't see your messages. You made me doubt my own perception of reality. There's nothing left to fix. He stood too, reaching for me, but I stepped back. Please, I made a terrible mistake. I can end it with Cameron. We can go to counseling. We can start over. No. The word came out with absolute finality. We can't. Because every time I look at you now, all I see is someone who thought I was stupid enough to never find out. Someone who mocked me in private messages. Someone I don't know at all. I walked to our bedroom, pulled a duffel bag from the closet, and started throwing his clothes into it. He followed, trying to protest, trying to argue, but I ignored him. When the bag was full, I carried it to the door and set it down. You have until tomorrow to get the rest of your things. I'll be at Logan's. Don't be here when I get back. He stood there, tears streaming down his face, looking young and lost in nothing like the man I'd loved. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did, I said. You destroyed us. And the worst part? You enjoyed it. I opened the door, a clear invitation for him to leave. After a long moment, he picked up the duffel bag and walked out. I closed the door behind him, locked it, and then, finally, I let myself cry. The first week after Alexis left felt like living underwater where every movement required enormous effort and sounds reached me muffled and distant. The apartment echoed with his absence. Everywhere I looked, I saw ghosts of our life together. His favorite coffee mug still sat in the cabinet, the one with the chipped handle that he refused to throw away. His hoodie hung on the back of the bathroom door, the one I'd stolen so many times that he'd started calling it mine. His pillow still smelled like his shampoo, a scent that used to bring me comfort but now made my stomach turn. I went through the apartment like a woman possessed, gathering every trace of him. Clothes, books, toiletries, all the small accumulations of 2 years together. I boxed everything methodically, sealed the containers with packing tape, and shoved them into the storage closet. Out of sight, out of mind. Or so I hoped. But memories don't fit in boxes. They linger in empty spaces, in quiet moments, in the muscle memory of reaching for someone who's no longer there. Sleep became impossible. I would lie in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying our relationship like a film I could rewind and pause, searching for the moment when everything went wrong. Had there been signs I missed, red flags I ignored, or had he simply been that good at deception? My phone became both my tormentor and my lifeline. I would scroll through our old messages, reading conversations from months ago when I'd believed everything was perfect. His declarations of love, his promises of forever, his constant reassurances. Had any of it been real, or was I just the convenient cover story while he pursued what he actually wanted? Logan finally staged an intervention on day 8. He showed up at my apartment with takeout and determination, letting himself in with the spare key I'd given him years ago. "You need to get out of this place," he said, surveying the disaster zone of my living room. Dishes piled in the sink, laundry overflowing from the hamper. Me unwashed and wearing the same sweatpants I'd had on for 3 days. "You're deteriorating." "I'm processing," I countered weakly. "You're rotting." He sat down beside me on the couch, his expression shifting from frustration to concern. "I get that you're hurt. You should be hurt. What he did was unforgivable. But you can't let him take your life too. He already took your trust and your relationship. Don't give him your future." I wanted to argue, to defend my right to fall apart in private, but I was too exhausted. "I don't know how to stop feeling like this. You start by showering. Then you eat something that isn't cereal. Then you take it one day at a time until the days start getting easier." He squeezed my shoulder. "You're stronger than this and you know it." After he left, I did shower. I did eat. But when night fell again, the darkness brought back all the doubts and pain I'd been trying to suppress. My phone lit up with a text. "Alexis, can we talk? Please?" I stared at the message for a long moment before deleting it, but my finger hovered over the block button without pressing it. Why? What was I waiting for? The calls started the next day. 1 call became 5, became 10. Each time his name appeared on my screen, my heart would lurch with a confusing mixture of anger and longing. Finally, on the 7th call, I answered. "What do you want, Alexis?" His voice came through rough and desperate. "I need to see you. I need to explain properly. What I said before wasn't enough." 6 months wasn't enough explanation? The bitterness in my tone surprised even me. "What else is there to say? That I was an idiot. That I threw away the best thing in my life for something that meant nothing." He was speaking quickly, words tumbling over each other. Cameron was just, it was just physical. It didn't mean what we had means. What we still could have. Just physical. I repeated incredulously. "You planned dates. Booked hotel rooms. Sent him messages about how exciting it was to sneak around behind my back. That's not just physical, Alexis. That's a relationship. It wasn't real," he insisted. "Not like us. You're the one I love. You're the one I want to build a life with. Then why wasn't I enough?" The question came out broken, revealing the insecurity I'd been trying to hide. "What did I lack that made you need someone else?" "Nothing. God, nothing. This wasn't about you. It was about me being selfish and stupid and not appreciating what I had until I lost it." "You didn't lose it," I corrected him coldly. "You threw it away. There's a difference. Please," he begged, "let me come over. Let me prove that I can change. Let me earn back your trust." Every fiber of my being wanted to say yes. Wanted to believe that we could go back to how things were before, when I was blissfully ignorant and he was presumably faithful. But I couldn't unhear those words he'd written to Cameron. "He doesn't suspect a thing." The mockery in that statement, the casual cruelty. "No," I said firmly. "We're done, Alexis. Accept it." I ended the call and immediately turned off my phone, unable to handle the barrage of texts and calls I knew would follow. That night, I lay awake again, but this time I wasn't replaying our relationship. I was questioning my decision. Had I been too harsh? Too quick to end things? People made mistakes, didn't they? People cheated and couples worked through it. Therapy existed for exactly this kind of situation. Maybe I was throwing away something salvageable out of pride. I got up and retrieved one of the boxes from storage, the one containing the framed photos I'd packed away. I pulled out my favorite, a picture of us from a weekend trip to the coast last summer. We looked happy, in love, real. Then I picked up my phone and opened the screenshots I'd saved. I forced myself to reread every message, every damning word. "I love sneaking around with you. He doesn't suspect a thing. Same time next week? I can't wait." The photos showed me what I wanted to believe. The messages showed me the truth. I put everything back in the box and returned it to storage. Then I blocked Alexis's number, deleted our text history, and removed him from all my social media. If I was going to heal, I needed to stop giving myself access to the poison that was killing me. Logan was right. I was stronger than this. I just needed to remember how to be. A month passed in a haze of therapy sessions and forced socialization before my mother's phone call shattered my carefully constructed routine. "I'm in town for a conference," she said, her voice carrying that particular blend of warmth and steel that only mothers possess. "Dinner tonight at the Grandview Hotel, 7 o'clock. Don't even think about making excuses." I wanted to decline. I hadn't told my family about the breakup, hadn't found the words to explain how completely I'd been betrayed. The thought of maintaining a cheerful facade through dinner felt exhausting, but something in her tone told me this wasn't optional. When I arrived at the hotel restaurant, I expected to find her alone at a table. Instead, I discovered she'd brought reinforcements. My father sat beside her, looking distinguished in his business suit, and my younger brother Nolan occupied the chair across from them. They all stood when they saw me, smiles spreading across their faces, but my mother's expression quickly shifted to concern. "You've lost weight," she said, skipping past pleasantries. It wasn't a question but an accusation. "Work's been busy," I lied, accepting her hug. My father embraced me next, his grip firm and grounding. Nolan punched my arm affectionately, then pulled me into a brief hug. We settled into our seats, and for a few minutes we managed small talk. My father's latest case, Nolan's new job at the tech startup, my mother's conference presentation, normal family conversation. Then Nolan asked the question I'd been dreading. "Where's Alexis? I thought for sure you'd bring him. He never misses a chance to impress Dad." The table fell silent. 3 sets of eyes turned to me, expectant. My mother's hand found mine across the tablecloth, her fingers warm and steady. "We're not together anymore," I said, the words feeling foreign in my mouth. "We broke up last month." More silence. My mother's grip tightened. My father's jaw set in that particular way that signaled controlled anger. Nolan's easy smile vanished. "What happened?" my mother asked gently. "You seemed so happy at Christmas." I'd been holding this story inside for weeks, carrying it alone because sharing it meant making it real. But sitting there surrounded by my family, I found I couldn't hold it anymore. The words came spilling out. Cameron. The late-night notification. The months of deception. The messages mocking my ignorance. The confrontation. All of it. My father remained silent throughout my confession, but his hands were clenched on the table, knuckles white. Nolan looked like he wanted to hit something. My mother just held my hand, her thumb tracing gentle circles on my palm, a gesture of comfort I remembered from childhood. When I finished, my mother spoke first. "You did exactly the right thing," she said firmly. "Walking away took courage. Staying would have taken nothing but fear. But I still miss him," I admitted, the confession barely above a whisper. "Even knowing everything he did, even hating what he put me through, part of me still wants him back." "What does that say about me?" "It says you're human," my father interjected, his voice rough with emotion. "It says you loved deeply and honestly, which is never something to be ashamed of." "He's the one who should feel shame, not you." Nolan leaned forward, his expression intense. "You deserve someone who treats you like you're the only person in the room, not like you're a secret they're keeping. Someone who celebrates you instead of hiding you away." Their words wrapped around me like a blanket, warming parts of me that had been frozen since that night I'd discovered the truth. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel completely alone. After dinner, as we stood outside the hotel saying our goodbyes, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and saw a text from an unknown number. The message made my blood run cold. "I heard you told your family about us. I wish things had ended differently. I really did care about you." Alexis had gotten a new number to circumvent my block. The audacity of it, the presumption that he had any right to contact me after everything, made anger flare hot in my chest. "What is it?" my mother asked, noticing my expression. I showed her the message. She read it, her lips pressing into a thin line. "Block this number too. Don't respond. Don't engage. He's trying to worm his way back into your life, and you can't let him." She was right. I blocked the number immediately and sent her a different text instead. Thank you for coming, I needed this more than I realized. The next morning, I was walking to work when I spotted Cameron through the window of a coffee shop. He was sitting with another man, laughing at something on his phone, looking carefree and happy. I waited for the pain to hit, for the jealousy or anger or grief. But I felt nothing. Cameron was just another stranger in a city full of them. Someone who briefly intersected with my life and was now irrelevant. That realization felt like progress. That evening, Logan called. I'm having a few people over for dinner tomorrow night. Very casual, but there's someone I'd like you to meet. Logan, I'm not ready for. Not like that. He interrupted quickly. Well, maybe like that, but no pressure. He's just a friend of mine from the gym. Recently moved here from Portland. Nice guy. Good sense of humor. Thinks the office is overrated, which is obviously wrong, but nobody's perfect. Despite myself, I laughed. It felt strange, using those muscles after so long. What's his name? Jasper. He's a graphic designer, likes hiking and Thai food, has a rescue dog named Pickle. That's all the information you get until you meet him. I'll think about it, I said, but we both knew I'd go. Because somewhere between my mother's fierce protection and my father's quiet strength and Nolan's righteous anger on my behalf, I'd remembered something crucial. I had people who loved me unconditionally. I had a life that existed independent of Alexis. I had a future that didn't require his presence to be worthwhile. Alexis was my past, a chapter that had ended badly but taught me valuable lessons about trust and self-respect. And I was finally ready to turn the page. When I arrived at Logan's apartment the next night, Jasper was already there, laughing at something Logan had said. He had kind eyes and an easy smile, and when he introduced himself, he didn't try too hard or make any assumptions. Logan tells me you're a fan of terrible horror movies, he said, shaking my hand. The worse the better, I confirmed. We're going to get along just fine then. And maybe we would, or maybe we wouldn't. Either way, I was finally ready to find out. Ready to risk again. Ready to live again. Ready to be more than the person Alexis had broken.